Good evening, everyone. James Hancock here. I'm back to review the Season 2 premiere of American Gods, an episode called House on the Rock. Quick note, the episode was available a few hours early on the Starz app, so if you don't feel like waiting in the future, definitely look there first. But as far as this show is concerned, I was late to the game on Season 1 and only started following it toward the end, but rapidly became a fan. So much so that I ended up reading Neil Gaiman's original novel, which was published back in 2001. I really enjoy Neil Gaiman's work, but I haven't read enough of it to be able to claim to be a connoisseur. I've read most of his Sandman comics, along with some others like 1602, which he did for Marvel. What I love most about Gaiman is his expertise on the subjects of myth, folklore, and fantasy. Check out the documentary Lovecraft: Fear of the Unknown if you want to see what I'm talking about, but I could listen to Neil Gaiman talk about genre entertainment for hours. At any rate, after finishing the book American Gods, I started counting down the days to Season 2, and like many, I was dismayed to hear that showrunners Bryan Fuller and Michael Green were fired in the fall of 2017. I'm still not entirely sure what went down, especially after the two of them successfully delivered such a stylistically unique show with a tone and atmosphere quite unlike anything else on TV. 2 days ago, the website IndieWire posted an interview with Neil Gaiman where he tried to clear up some of the misinformation out there about the behind-the-scenes drama without ever really underlining what led to Fuller's departure. What's crazy is how Bryan Fuller has so many fans, but he seems to part ways with a lot of shows. I would love to hear the true story about why he parted ways with Star Trek Discovery, and I would really love to hear the true story about why he parted ways with American Gods. But Neil Gaiman wasn't in a position to come on board as the full-time showrunner because he's already busy on another show called Good Omens. But in his spare time, Neil Gaiman started working closely with the new showrunner, Jesse Alexander. And from the way Neil Gaiman describes their working relationship, I do have high hopes for this season overall. And the article on IndieWire has this quote by Neil Gaiman describing the week that he spent with Jesse Alexander, telling him what was going to happen in Season 2 and outlining things to him and getting him up to speed on the plot of American Gods and on the mega plot of American Gods and of the stuff I'd planned and the stuff I'd suggested to Michael and Bryan that we could do. When it came to the Season 2 premiere, Gaiman ended up co-writing the episode. After reading Alexander's first draft, Neil Gaiman said, you've never really been to the House on the Rock, and this is your first time writing these characters, and you're not quite there with their voices yet. And I said, look, would it be easier if I just took a pass on your script just to get some of that stuff to just work for you? So I took a pass on a script and gave it to him, and then he took it back over again. But in each case, I felt like, okay, I'm here helping Jesse to do what he needs to do in order to get a season of American Gods made. Anytime I see the creator behind the source material taking that kind of active role in a show or movie, I get very fired up. But what really got me excited was Neil Gaiman's description of working with writer Heather Belson. Gaiman said she'd written episode 3, which is fabulous, and she was about to do episode 7, and so I got to say, well, this is meant to be the Mad Sweeney one. You realize I have 7,000 years of Mad Sweeney backstory, and she's like, tell me. So we holed up in a trailer in Toronto, and we did 7,000 years of Mad Sweeney backstory, which is actually there in episode 7. I don't know about y'all, but that sounds absolutely incredible to me. I thought Mad Sweeney was horribly underutilized in the novel, so I'm thrilled that they're giving him so much new material to work with. Overall, I'm just impressed with how open and collaborative Neil Gaiman apparently has been with this show, not insisting that the show obey the strict letter of every word that he wrote in the book. To me, the overall concept is even more relevant now in 2019 than it was originally back in 2001. In today's social media age, having followers, subscribers, and getting clicks gives individuals so much power, and I love how the show taps into that phenomenon so cleverly in this ongoing struggle between the old and the new gods. And according to Gaiman, he would like to see this show run 5 seasons total, although we already know that Starz is looking for a new showrunner for Season 3 after the departure of Jesse Alexander, so the future of the show is very much up in the air, depending upon how this season goes. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about the Season 2 premiere. I absolutely love this episode, and it was the perfect way to reintroduce us to this world with appearances from most of the major characters from Season 1. After a nearly 2-year gap between Season 1 and Season 2, we kind of needed that. But in broad strokes, we see that Mr. Wednesday is rallying what forces he can from the old gods for a meeting at the House on the Rock, a place of enormous power, far more so than any of its regular visitors might suspect. I love how the show explores the idea of places of power, where anything from a church to a hot dog stand can be built to take advantage of the crowds that are naturally going to gather there no matter what. Wednesday is basically looking for a show of hands to see who would join him in the upcoming battle with Mr. World, Technical Boy, and the other new gods. I think Crispin Glover and Ian McShane are the perfect adversaries, and both of them absolutely chew the scenery every opportunity they get. But their characters both have problems on their hands. Mr. World can't find his best salesman, Media, and demands that Technical Boy begin the search. Mr. Wednesday's problem is that he's dealing with very old and very complacent figures who don't entirely understand the urgency of the situation or even what they should do if they join forces with Wednesday. But when Wednesday and his allies are attacked, resulting in the death of Zorya Vechernaya, I hope I'm saying that correctly, the character played by the great Cloris Leachman, this hostile act does appear to get the old god's attention, and the episode ends with Shadow Moon getting kidnapped by the forces of Mr. World. So in terms of plot, the episode was solid, but the plot of American Gods has never been what draws me to the show. What I love is the dialogue, the bizarre exchanges between supernatural characters, the otherworldly environments, and the seemingly inexhaustible variety of different mythological beings. I played a ton of D&D growing up, and one of my favorite resources was the book Deities and Demigods, which provided the stats of all the gods, goddesses, heroes, and monsters from various pantheons, from Norse mythology to Arthurian legend, and I still have my original copy from the early 80s, and it's on the verge of falling to pieces from overuse, but this show does a brilliant job of reminding me why I was so fascinated with that book throughout my childhood. Easily my favorite scene all episode had to be when Shadow joins Wednesday and his allies on the carousel and gets to have a front row seat to their strategy session. Shadow has this vision where he wakes up on a beach covered in skulls, which is one of Wednesday's memories, and he's guided to the meeting by Bilquis, who was not technically invited, although she was already old before Odin ever saw his first horse sacrificed in his honor. Her loyalties are very much divided in that she's using the tools of the modern age to gain new worshippers and power, but what sold me on the scene was the insanely cool character design. We see these gods as they truly are. Bilquis was just stunning with all this energy and fire coming out of her eyes. Mr. Nancy had 6 eyes. Chernabog was absolutely ferocious looking. Mama G, aka Kali, looked stunning. But best of all was Ian McShane as Odin, talking about how they're gods in a land without gods, but that the new gods want them all dead. Scenes like this are why I watch this show. But I also like the more grounded scenes. The episode opens with my 4 favorite characters, Shadow, Laura, Mad Sweeney, and Wednesday, all driving together toward Wisconsin. There's so much open animosity and suspicion between them, but I love watching these characters interact. Wednesday and Sweeney are reminiscing about making love to mermaids, while Sweeney continues to refer to Laura as dead wife. She's basically a being who survives only because she continues to feed off of his luck. When Laura asks Wednesday about his enemies and their motivation, he gives her this classic response. He says, "They all want what I have, a good time wherever I go." Now, Ian McShane will probably never again find a part as natural for him as Al Swearingen in Deadwood, but he is positively delightful as Wednesday. He definitely has the most memorable interactions with the rest of the cast, whether he's talking to Laura about hanging on the tree Yggdrasil for 9 days for knowledge, or if he's just hanging out and playing the role of host at a diner at the Motel America. That scene was so good with all these deities hanging out and relaxing, just like regular everyday Americans. The food looked like anything you might find at a typical truck stop. And Peter Stormare is so goddamn funny as Chernabog. I've never quite known how to pronounce his last name. Is it Stormare or Stormari? At any rate, he's completely unwilling to forget that Shadow beat him in checkers and that Shadow owes him an appointment with his hammer. And then when the restaurant's attacked by one of Mr. World's agents and Zorya ends up getting killed, the stream of profanity and filth that spews forth from Chernabog's mouth was so delicious, I might have to memorize it for future use. At any rate, Shadow leaps into action against the shooter, only to be grabbed by a beam of light that acts like a tractor beam and takes him away. Which leads us straight into the teaser for the next episode, where we see Sweeney and Laura teaming up to look for Shadow, while Technical Boy continues his hunt for media. So while I'm not the biggest fan of waiting nearly 2 years in between seasons of a show, hopefully Starz will recognize what a special show they have on their hands and get their act together for season 3. When it comes to the quality of the show, I do worry about the revolving door of showrunners and the show's ability to hang on to the talent that gives the show such a distinctive look and flavor, but for the time being, I'm all in until they give me a reason otherwise. So I think that's all I got for now. I'm a very satisfied fan. It's great to be back on board. It's great to have a Sunday night show again to follow. But if you enjoyed this reaction and review, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it. If you want to talk about Neil Gaiman, myth, legend, whatever, you can find me on Twitter at Colbrex. There's a link in the description below. But thanks for watching my video. I always appreciate the support. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.